Alright, so I want to start by saying that I have reviews for Far Cry 5, Sea of Thieves, and Monster Hunter World on the way. I've played all three of those, but I just had to get to this one first, because God of War is one of the best games I've ever played. Seriously, if you own a PS4, buy this game. There is absolutely no reason not to own this right now. And if you don't own a PS4, I think now's the time to buy one. It's that good, and Sony has been cranking out these fantastic exclusives that I really think it's worth it. And now I'm gonna make this brief because so much of the game is a spoiler. There are so many incredible moments that happen, and I think it would be a damn shame if anyone wasn't able to experience them firsthand. So because of that, I'm just gonna cover the very basics in this video, and I'm only showing early gameplay and one of the minor boss fights. So the story centers on Kratos and his son Atreus as they journey up the mountain to scatter their wife/mom's ashes out into the wind. And while the plot itself is relatively simple, the characters in the mythology are so interesting that it completely captivates you from start to finish. Kratos is determined to make sure his son doesn't become the monster that Kratos used to be, and you can see the real conflict within him as he tries to be a good father. The writing is terrific, and the characters you meet on your journey are all very memorable. Like, I wish I could say more, but I really don't want to. Just know that they make expository dialogue incredibly natural and entertaining, and it's probably better than any other game I've ever seen so far. And when the game finally comes to its conclusion, it leaves you on such a great moment, and it left me dying for more. The new combat system is a departure from the previous God of War games, but it ends up being fantastic. Combat is smooth, and there are several different moves and combos to master. Playing on hard difficulty is the best way to go in my opinion, and it really gives you a challenge at times. Every swing of the axe feels so heavy, and you can feel the impact of every hit. It's so brutal and intense, and I absolutely loved it. This was a game where I actually wanted to go out and find different challenge bosses because they were a ton of fun to fight. There are also a ton of little puzzles and secrets out there for you to find, and the game as a whole feels very rewarding in pretty much every aspect. The levels are semi-open world, so there is also room to explore and do side missions and look for collectibles. Speaking of that, I thought the side missions I played were really cool, and everything you did was rewarding because you could get new items to customize Kratos. They added some minor RPG elements with different skills and abilities and a bunch of different armor pieces that have certain effects, things like that. It may sound a bit tacked on, but honestly, I thought it worked very well. And just all the boss fights were awesome. There wasn't a single one I didn't like, and so many of them were incredible, but I don't want to spoil any of them, so all I'm showing you is this one of the basic ones, one of the mini bosses. Now, this game looks amazing. I mean, I don't have to say anything else here. Just look at it. Even with my bad 720p captures, you can still tell the game looks fantastic. And you can turn off film grain and motion blur, which is amazing and something every game should allow. And while the creature design was awesome, it was really the world design that blew me away. Every different location was so interesting, and I loved exploring all around. The soundtrack is also this epic blend of strings, drums, and echoes, and it goes from peaceful melodies to thunderous, heart-pounding madness. I also just want to mention the fact that there are no camera cuts or loading screens throughout the entire game. Besides me dying, of course, but seriously, the whole thing is like very cinematic. The camera just consistently moves. It's like one long tracking shot is the whole game. I know it doesn't sound that crazy when you just like hear it, but when you actually see it, it's pretty amazing. I mean, the game starts literally from the loading screen right into the game. There's no cut. You just hit play and the loading screen like comes to life. It's pretty awesome. Honestly, all my issues with this game are very small. My first is that I felt the game was a bit too forgiving when you died. Like there are a few sections where you would die in a boss fight or a multi-stage battle and it would respawn you with full health already partway through the battle or boss. Now, not everything was like this, and honestly, it was only about 3 times where I felt it was pretty cheap, but it still kinda annoyed me. Like, I get that they need to make it beatable by everyone, but I was playing on hard and I felt it was cheap when I was able to die and respawn with full health. I just feel like it should have been less forgiving at times. My other issue was that some of the mini-bosses felt a bit too samey. Now, not as samey as those terrible Hinox bosses from Breath of the Wild, but definitely not the most interesting the 4th or 5th time around. Unlike in Zelda, however, they actually do have slightly different attacks and abilities, and there isn't a way to completely cheese the fight. So they were still fun the 5th time, just not quite as exciting. And my last complaint is that I wish Kratos had a few more execution animations. Yeah, that's how good this game is. I'm actually nitpicking on something like that. But all these things are very, very, very minor things that really did little to hurt my enthusiasm to keep playing. Now, for those of you that know me, you know that I consider a 10 to be unattainable, because there are always going to be problems with something, even if they are very small. But more recently, I've come to the realization that while nothing is truly a 10, giving something the label of 10 is more of like an award given out to something truly special. Something that really goes above and beyond, even though it certainly has a few minor flaws. And so far, the only games I've played that I would consider to be worthy of that high praise are BioShock and Inside. And now God of War. There are certainly a few issues, but like, this game is just so incredible. It's so fun, it's so interesting, it's so well written, so well voice acted. Seriously, the Game Awards better recognize the voice actor for Kratos. That man has the most intimidating voice ever, and he doesn't even have to say anything and it sounds intimidating. It looks gorgeous, the combat is always engaging, the puzzles and side stuff feel rewarding. It feels like I was actually getting rewards for exploring more. I would get new abilities. I could level up like my health more depending on what all the collectibles that I found and stuff. It felt like it was rewarding me for playing the game, and I love that. And it leaves you on such a good moment that I can't wait for this sequel.